So some people would say, well, how was the sun created on day number 4? And how does the book of Job help with this, with the cloud covering? How can you tie that into Genesis chapter 1?
Well, I never heard of that until I came to the U.S. and met Christians who seemed bothered by that, because when I first read Genesis, I noted right away, it doesn't say on creation day 4 that God created the sun.
Yeah.
It says, let there be the great lights. And so it says, okay, the sun may have been created before. And I believe that the sun was created before the 6 days of creation. And on creation day 1, again, the text says, let there be light. It doesn't say that God created the light. He did that in the beginning, Genesis 1:1. Genesis 1:3 is when the light that God created for the first time penetrated to the surface of planet Earth. And you mentioned Job. Job actually gives far more scientific details on the creation days than you get in the book of Genesis, especially Job 37, 38, and 39. And Job 38, verses 8 and 9, talks about a time in the past history of the earth when God had blanketed the seas, had blanketed the waters with clouds that kept the seas dark, basically explicitly stating the reason why it was dark on the face of the waters in Genesis 1:2, Earth had a cloud layer that wouldn't let visible light through. Now, as a 17-year-old reading that for the first time, I had enough astronomy under my belt to realize any planet the size of the Earth is going to begin with an atmosphere that's so thick, visible light will not make it through to the surface. Same thing as Venus. Venus today has a thick atmosphere, and the only visible light that gets through is at the very deep red end of the spectrum. Earth had an atmosphere 3 times thicker than that of Venus, so no visible light would have gotten through.
So that's why there was darkness on the surface of the deep then in Genesis 1.
Day 1. When you get to day 4, it says, "Let there be the great lights." And keep in mind, it says, "Let there be the great lights, so that they may serve as signs to mark seasons, days, and years." And again, at age 17, I said, well, for whose benefit? And then I noticed on creation day 5, God creates animals. Animals are the one life form that must know the position of the sun, moon, and stars in the sky to regulate their biological clocks. So I said, okay, that makes sense. The atmosphere has got to go from translucent to transparent if you're going to have animals. And I wrote a blog. It's in June of 2018. It's on our reasons.org website, where I talk about an experiment that physicists did, where they took the atmosphere of the Earth, duplicated that in a flask, and changed the oxygen content. Because we know just before animals appeared in the face of the Earth, there was less than 1% oxygen in Earth's atmosphere, and the great unconformity caused that to jump up suddenly to 8%. And when it hit 8%, you immediately got animals. That's the Avalon explosion. And so they did this experiment in this flask, and what they discovered, at 1%, the atmosphere is a thick haze. At 8%, it's transparent.
Oh, okay.
And so that explains what we see there in Genesis 1. You've got a hazy atmosphere for the first 3 creation days. On day 4, that thick haze gets transformed into a transparent atmosphere, and now these future animals will be able to see where the sun, moon, and stars are in the sky.